Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So we're gonna ease into it just to do the housekeeping, and then we'll start with the, an ancestral and as well as a land acknowledgement before we dive into a brief introduction of each of our panelists. Then I'll hand it over, and they can further introduce themselves, get below the surface, talk about the people behind the magic and the masks. Then we'll dive into a roundtable discussion where we're actually going to highlight both their journeys, how they've navigated, and what it looks like for everyone to thrive and mobilize in this space. So without further ado, I want to kick off the fourth in our series of power panels, focused on political power, being able to leverage your voice and platform. So I want to more formally welcome all of our panelists. So we have Mr. Charles Taylor this evening. We have Miss Kate Macdonald, Mr. Trayvone Clayton, and Miss Nicole Johnson here joining us. The flow of the evening, myself and each of the panelists are the only voices, the only faces that you're going to be seeing on the screens. And as each person talks, I will do my best to quickly highlight them and pin them on the screen so you'll be able to see just whoever is talking as well. Throughout the evening, whether you have questions, especially in the Q&A period at the end, or other insights, or even just some of the quotes and hot things that they will be dropping with these gems, you can throw them in the chat. Just make sure that you make your comments available to the panelists and attendees, or for the attendees, if you just want the panelists to see it, you can click here so that it's just the panelists. Diving right into the discussion, I want to do the welcome, which we have in full effect. And the next part on that is I want to do an ancestral acknowledgement. So especially here in Nova Scotia, it's critical to pay homage to our indigenous Afro-Nova Scotians, peoples who have been in these lands for over 400 years. The reality is also across Canada, but across the African diaspora, it's critical that we also celebrate our ancestors, because we are people that have been here for thousands of years. We're builders and creators. We're politicians. We're community builders. We're designers. We're innovators. We're everything. And a lot of these things actually are rooted in our Afrocentric knowledge, right? The community knowledge, our histories, but we don't celebrate it and we don't think about it as daily as as much as we could. And so as part of our ancestral acknowledgement, it's critical that we start to really pay our true selves respect. We have to celebrate ourselves to fully know our value. And that comes from celebrating our community members, our parents, our grandparents, because whenever we step into space, no matter the stress, no matter the pressures, we're never alone. We're standing on this, the shoulders of the people who came before us. And the four panelists we have today are huge change makers, and so we're privileged because we're standing on their shoulders as well as they lead change across the communities. I also want to do a land acknowledgement because as we sit here, whether it's in Mi'kma'ki or on Turtle Island, we're on unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq peoples. And so that's also recognizing that they are also indigenous to these lands where there were rights and treaties that paid respect to this being their land, but they weren't honored. And similarly in our communities where, things are set up, but not followed through. And so as we pay respect to all being part of these lands, we have to honor ourselves as treaty people. And that means bringing our best selves into these spaces, collaborating, and being open to being respecting each other and respecting other cultures. So next, what I want to do is just a very brief introduction to each of the panelists before handing it over to them. And first and foremost, I want to introduce Miss Kate Macdonald, wearing many hats, but a co-founder of 902 Game Changers, an advocate, community leader, builder, manager. I don't know all the whole list, but someone who is an innovator and a builder through and through. And so, your voice has continued to lead change in the community, not just in the political spaces, but especially in terms of holding people accountable. So I'm very grateful to having you here, Kate. I'll pass it to you shortly, but I want to welcome the rest of the panelists as well. Next, we have Mr. Trayvone Clayton, a big baller in a lot of ways. Young, wearing many hats as a student, as an athlete, as an advocate, as a creator, right? As a founder, and as somebody who is highlighting how you can bring your passion, how you can bring your authenticity in these spaces, and regardless of your age, you can lead impact. So thank you, Trayvone, for joining us. Next, I want to pass it over to Ms. Nicole Johnson, someone else who's been wearing many hats, active. Most recently, people might have, of course, have to remember and pay respect to the fact that you were rising and building in the community, specifically for District 2, looking to be a municipal candidate and counselor. And so very grateful, because that's how maybe some people got to know you, but your journey started earlier, right? So born in Preston Township, but you have a business background, big in community, some producing in there. So the creative, the innovative, the vibes. Everybody is really bringing this message home today, right? You all have platforms, you all have power, and you bring it in different ways. So I'm excited, Nicole, to hear a little bit more about your story as well. And last but not least, Mr. Charles Taylor, again, wearing many hats, experience with the city, experience in the community of East Preston, where you head a couple of the nonprofit initiatives going on with the East Preston Ratepayers Community Development Association, engaged with the rec center, but big on the community development side and taking a different side where, it's education and it's agriculture, but it's also heavily rooted in taking action. So I'm very curious to hear more about, your story and what you're looking to do in the coming months for the community. So thank all of you for joining us. Kate, if we could start with you, and maybe I could pass it over just to get a more formal introduction of yourself. I'll holler at you, so patience, everyone.
Cool. Thanks for the introduction, Andreas. Well, like currently, I'm the branch manager at the North Branch Library, which is and has been and continues to be and will always be a staple in the African Nova Scotian community. It's where the first conversations of Black History Month were born, as well as there's been tons of giants that have come out of that library. So I feel very honored to be carrying that legacy. As mentioned, I also do some activist organizing frontline stuff with Trey and Dorico Simons. What else do? I do some like art stuff. I've done a lot of youth programming. And yeah, a lot of advocacy and kind of inviting myself to tables that I wasn't really asked to be at. So that's kind of my thing, a little bit disruptive here and there. I love a good conversation about the why things need to be done that way, why can't they be done in a new fashion, and why can't they be done for our benefit as African Nova Scotians. So I think that's it for me. I'll know who I'm passing it to next, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. Bobby or Trayvone, if I could pass it over to one of you, whoever wants to jump in.
I'll go. Hello, my name is Trayvone Clayton. I am just a 22-year-old. I am a member of the YMCA on the Sackville Street. I work here for now. I have bright future, co-founder of Game Changers 902, recipient of Human Rights Award, Rocky Jones Human Rights Award, recipient of the Peace Medal from the YMCA. I'm the one who demanded Justin Trudeau to get here to Halifax to apologize due to systemic racism at Parliament Hill. I also killed two birds with one stone with that. No prime minister has ever seen the Black Cultural Center. So with that as well, me, Kate, Dorico, and a couple others, we showed Justin Trudeau our history, our ancestors, and everyone that has built this path for us till this day. But yeah, I'm a young adult who's looking to lead by an example for the next generation, ready to give up a torch that I didn't even really get to carry for a long time. But I want the youth to be the ones to take that steering wheel.
Greatly appreciate you joining us. Miss Nicole, if I could pass it over to you.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to acknowledge Kate and Trayvone, who I've never met, but very excited to hear your guys' efforts and your heart concerning your community. Thank you for doing everything you've done to this day. I think that you there's always somebody being raised for such a time as their generational to come forth next. So you guys are it. And part of who I am and what I've done, I have done I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I have a business tenacity because I like organization and order, and I like things to be done with excellence. And getting into politics now, I would have never thought to do that, but I feel the weight. I feel the hunger and the thirst for our community to push a force for it so that things can get done, because our community deserves that. Our seniors deserve it. People are dying without seeing, their hard work come into play. And, I see Bobby and I had a conversation today that kind of was very productive in sharing our similar thoughts. And those are the kind of people that I want to come alongside of to help push that force forward to see change happen. Change is not going to happen until it's made. And the reflection of this election, this term, showed me a lot. And we'll get into all of that. But, I stepped up because why not us? Why not a Black woman of, why not? I mean, so much is changing, so much is going on in the world that is shaping us to be the people that we are. I had plenty of opportunities to leave and go study abroad and work abroad, but it's always drawn me back to that community of East Preston. And I have to ask myself, as Kate would say, the why question. Why am I being drawn back here? Why? So now my question is, what now do I do with the position that I'm in? So, and I'm just going to go forward and run for the second term.
Oh, see, I'm already getting energized. Getting ready to dive into this. My goodness, Bobby, if I could pass it over to you, please.
All right. Well, my name is Charles Taylor. Most people know me as Bobby. Like Nicole, I never actually met Kate or Trayvone. I mean, I knew of you, but I've never actually met you. Glad to meet you.
Yeah.
Looking forward to talking to you. I'll just say I kind of started because I just got fed up, I have young kids. My 5-year-old, we're driving home, and he sees my community the same way I did when I was 5 years old. And I just got mad, and, like Nicole was saying, it's like, why not us? And I think politically, we can do a lot of things because politically we've never really done anything. It's, in terms of being united and putting our voice out there and standing as one for a common cause. We all have our support. We all have, in our different areas, but it's about finding that one common goal that everybody's willing to fight for and making real change happen. There's a lot of things politically that I think we don't really see or understand, but we need to know. And for the youth to want to know these things, it's from our people like myself and others, it's our job to kind of take the punches so that they can just navigate their way super easy. Because that's kind of where I started. My dad did this stuff. A lot of people in my family did this, so it's kind of in me to fight. And I've watched so many people do it, and so many people fall, and so many people quit. It's time to do something different. It's time to stand up together and fight. So if anything else is, I hope from this, everybody gets fired up about making a difference for whatever it is they want to make a difference. And everybody's, willing to fight for self, because that's what we need to fight for.
And with that, the tone has been set, for the evening. I guess logical, the progression, I really want to hear, the beginning. So as I talked about, the first phase of this conversation, of the round table discussion, I really want to dive into each and one of yours, your lived experience and the knowledge, because, to get to where you have been, it doesn't just happen, navigating these spaces, being a person of African descent, nothing is just given or easy. And so that being the case, I really want to start off at, the early part of the journey, wherever it was for you. When on your journey did you realize the impact and value that using your voice and using your platform had? So when on your journey did you first realize that? And then, you know, how have you used it? How have you found a way to leverage your platform? So give it a little bit. Whoever wants to jump right in.
I'll go. I think for me, doing community stuff, you know, that's kind of what I do is community work. There was a lot of things going on in Preston through the government. So myself and a few others sat down and we wrote a letter and we sent it to every level of government. And that letter basically said, unless you talk to us first, you can't do anything in Preston. So basically, as a community, we're putting our foot down. You're not going to do anything here without our say so, without talking to us. And they actually listened. After I said that, I got 5 or 6 different emails about things that were going on that were literally deplorable. You know, but I realized and for most of us, you know, you hit a lot of walls, but then you'll do that one thing, or you'll send that one letter, or you'll say that one thing to a certain person, and it will actually open a door. So because of that, I found out that Burnside's supposed to be extended to Porter's Lake. You know, because of that, I found out a lot of things that's going on that we didn't know that were plans for 40, 50 years. You know, so 50 years ago, before any of us were even a thought, they already had our community rental. But it's when you actually get mad and stand up for yourself and do it unapologetically that they'll listen to you. So, you know, and knowing that, I sent another letter and it was about the Burnside extension. And I said, you know, basically what it is. I said, it's racist, it's garbage, you can't do it, all of that. And it turns out they're not going to do it. So if that's what it takes is, you know, to get mad and tell the truth in a letter, then maybe we should all do that. You know, because I'm sure all of us have sent a few nasty letters about what we thought about a few things that people may have done to us. And it turns out that when you have truth on your side, it really works. So I find that for me, it's just I found out, you know, you tell the truth and people will listen to you because they can't dispute it. So that's kind of how I try to just go about it is, you know, I don't get in a lot of rooms because I don't have room for garbage. It's facts or nothing else. So a lot of politicians don't want to deal with me. So it's a fight and it's hard, but as long as you tell the truth, you'll do what you need to do. And I think that's the most important thing with all of this is as long as it comes from a place of love and a place of truth, you won't fail.
Well, that's powerful. I appreciate that. You know, especially the part of, you know, as long as you're coming from an authentic place, you know, there's going to be some barriers you're going to have to navigate. But in the end, yeah, the sustainability, the real comes through. So I appreciate that in a big way. Ms. Macdonald, Kate, you trying to jump on in?
Yes, I can jump in. That truth piece really resonates real for me because I had a lot of encouragement over the past few years to speak truth to power. That was always what I was told. And yeah, I think that part of that kind of like very simple idea has allowed me to get to the places that I've gotten to and to speak to the people that I've spoken to. But I've always, even since I was young, when something felt not right to me, I've always said that. And that's kind of evolved as I've gotten older, as I've leveled up. You know, okay, well, that doesn't look right and that doesn't look right. And in high school, I learned what the Black Panther Party was. And then I was like, okay, wait a minute. There are people who dedicate their lives to advocating for Blackness, celebrating Blackness, who aren't afraid by any stretch of the imagination. And so as I've learned, you know, my sort of bravery, I guess, my boldness has expanded, you know? And I think also it's been really helpful for me to look at politicians and people in power, which like, you know, what kind of power do you want? What kind of power is that? What does power even mean? Right? I don't want that kind of power, damn. So to not be afraid, right? you're just another person. And as a matter of fact, I'm an expert in where I'm coming from. You know what I mean? Are you? So that's kind of when I, and having this attitude, I guess, has really allowed me to continue to speak. I still think I'm understanding the impacts of living. Again, you all have already said it, my truth, authentically, unapologetically. I'm still figuring out how far, when I stand in those things, how far I can go. But I feel very blessed because a lot of people don't even know how far they reach in their lifetime, right? We have to wait till someone passes to even celebrate them truly. So I've been very blessed to even have people be like, wow, like I look up to you, or kids say, like you're cool. And I'm like, okay, that's really beautiful. I feel very blessed. But yeah, so I guess to kind of round it all out, I'm still figuring out what the impact is. I'm still figuring out what my impact can be and how great my possibilities are.
And we are forever grateful for that, because you bring your own magic, absolutely, and you're doing it in your own way, and all the things you highlighted, that's why it's so important for people to live authentically, because when you do that, you give others permission to do the same, right? And seeing is believing. So when they see someone that looks like them, when they see someone whose hair is like theirs, or who likes the colors they do and they rock them smooth, like, it empowers them. And so, yeah, I appreciate that in a very big way. And I'm excited to dig a little bit more. But before I do, Trayvone, you trying to jump on in?
Yeah. So Kate and Charles kind of just took everything out of my mouth. This is why we're all here together, because we all have a connection for the same kind of things. Back to what Charles said about he don't like being in a room filled with garbage, or don't like hearing garbage. I'm the same exact way. So it all started for me. The Justin Trudeau situation is what kicked it off. But before that, it was street checks. It was the street checks. I sat on a committee. Kate knows. Sat on committee for that. And so the first time we went for that committee meeting, we all did a vote, like a tally of who recommends street checks to be banned. 99.9% of the room put their hand up that they wanted it banned. And then a couple weeks later, we did another one, and then it was shady. Like the people that put their hands up the first time didn't put their hands up the second time. And so for me, that was where it just kind of was just like, all right, time to speak, Trey. So after that, I got up. I was just saying I can't be in a circle where we're just talking in a circle, where everything's just going around the circle, around and around. I'm not no race car, that NASCAR that just does hundreds of laps. I'm someone who wants to go up, not down, because we have many barriers as Blacks, and they want us stuck down. So my vision is to go up. And I said to the group, I cannot be a part of this group if you guys are just talking in circles, talking garbage. After that, I sent the email to the group telling them that I'm going to back away. And so after that, the whole committee went on pause for a couple of weeks. And then that's when things started to get a little bit heated and interesting. Street checks were banned after that. So when street checks were banned, then I got into the Parliament Hill situation. I feel like it all found me. I always said I never wanted to do this kind of stuff because I grew up watching my father do it. He was always a busy man. I got to spend time with him, but not as much as I wanted to, because he was out there trying to make the right path and clear the way for me as his son. And I always said I don't want to do that because he's so busy. He has no time to put up with anything. But hey, it found me. So Parliament Hill, when we were kicked out of there due to skin color, I went back to the hotel just looking at the ceiling, thinking like, what do I do with this? Do I stay shut, or do I release this to the people and let them know that Canada does not support us? So when I did that and released it, everything just blew up. It's like, that's how I know phones and stuff are tapped, because once I got back to Halifax, my phone was blowing up, Kate's phone was blowing up. We were just off the hook. Everyone was calling, trying to get our story from what was going on. multiple things were sent to me and Kate about what we should do. People were trying to write the story for us, but me and Kate just went our own way. We did it, and we shared it, and everything after that just blew up. My father, he said to me, Trey, you're not Trayvone no more. When people see your name, you're Trayvone in bold letters, because people just realize that when I was at that time, I was 20 going on 21. I'm a 20-year-old taking on Parliament Hill, the Prime Minister, calling out the Prime Minister. After I got him to come to Halifax, apologize, and then I think that's where I kind of found my voice to speak on for community. I continued to do that. I had my ups and downs. I even spoke based on mental health, and then when I spoke on mental health to youth, that's when they found out, like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. So for me, growing up, I always had someone who I looked up to. He's my best friend, Lendell Wigginton. I always wanted to go far with basketball, but I didn't get that opportunity. But I used him as my example, as a role model to chase your dream, because he just kept going forward with it. So me using my voice, chasing what I know is right, and speaking the truth is what is going to get me up above, not even just me, but all of us in the community, above the barriers that are trying to hold us down. So like it means a lot to be able to do all this kind of stuff. And today I was sent multiple images of the kids at Caledonia posting me on their posters. And when I got into this, I never thought I was inspiring. I never looked like I was just doing it because I thought it was what was right and what was the truth. But now to see that kids are actually paying attention and using me as a role model, I have a lot on my shoulders, and I'm happy that kids see the things that I'm doing now to this day. So.
Oh, and we are all better for you being in here, stepping up. And as you said, maybe you didn't intentionally think, go out looking for it. But because of who you are and because of the power that you bring into these things, right? You had to step into it. And, it's kind of that, for me, I'm a visual person, right? The whole thing that you said about, being 20, but taking on Parliament, right? That's a big image, because a lot of times, like when you think about, David and Goliath, or, the community, it's always a small group versus a whole lot of powerful people that aren't necessarily for them, right? And so, even in your story, it highlights the importance, especially for our youth. One, you can do it. You have the power. You have the magic. But you can also make waves when you step into that. So I really appreciate you giving voice and continuing to push along. I want to pass it on over to Miss Nicole.
Well, let me say this, Trayvone, you speak very eloquently and you speak from the heart, and Kate, you as well. And definitely, Bob, we already know that. The Bible says, and this kept ringing in my spirit when Trayvone was talking, your gifts will make way for you. And you may not understand where it's leading you, but it will make way for you. So all of the things that we are experiencing as individuals within our respective communities, it's making the way for what needs to be done. I grew up, and as a kid, you mentioned about kids looking up to you, or seeing you in this image. Kids are always watching. People are always watching us, and not that we're on display, but when people are making strides for the right reasons, authentically, and whether somebody's standing with them or not, that there's a spirit that comes with that commands to be noticed. And when I sat growing up in my home, I've always sat around the elders or the seniors or older people, because they're always telling stories. Stories are funny, stories are insightful, historically driven, but there's always telling a story, and there's always a lesson in that to be listening to. So I grew up observing them, paying attention to them. Our household was a big household, and my grandmother got along with a lot of people, both communities, East, North, and Cherrybrook. And there was always people, dropping in to say hi. There was always food around. So that taught me social aspect, hospitality, how to get along with people, how to talk in conversation, how to respect other people, and then to enjoy them. So spiritually, how I grew up, I've always had those principles guiding my life. And I don't need to put that on display. I just need it to guide me and step into those positions when it's ready. And I think politically, you know, there are people who are in positions of power, but they're not always using their power for the right reasons. And then there are people like our community who gets left out of those things or overlooked or not even considered at all. And we need to make those changes for that. Stand up, be at the table, do what we need to do to be visible and speak, or shut the conversation down. Bobby's done it, Trayvone's done it, Kate's done it. And guess what? That's a boldness. That is a boldness like a lion, not to devour or take or chop anybody out, but to say, hold on, wait a second. We're here to protect and to serve our community as well. We may not wear a uniform, but we are going to use our voice. And so for each of us sitting here at this table or on this Zoom call, we all contribute something. And I don't take it lightly that these opportunities have afforded us to get us here. We just have to recognize the times that we're in, and I think we do. I really do, because even though I haven't heard about Kate and Trayvone, you guys are doing pretty amazing things on that side of the community, on that side of the water. Bobby's holding it down over here doing his thing, and countless of others. So I think the thing for us as a community is getting together, coming together, unifying, speaking the one voice. I watch movies such as Marshall or Facing the Giants, those kind of big community story movies where, you know, when people come together and they get over their little idiosyncrasy things or egotistic things or whatever, and they come together for the good of the community and stand up to do what the right thing is. Now, whatever that is for the community, that's determined by the community, but the coming together, that is the first key of action. That is the most powerful thing ever. And something does that to me when I see people gather for the good of themselves and their community, and they work towards those effortlessly to bring about change. So, you know, I'm really excited to kind of hear and get into this as we move along, because there's so much gems and jewels sitting here right now. So I'm excited about that, but that's my little piece. Your gift will make room for you. So, yes.
Gee, I just want to let that one hang in the air for a minute. Your gift will make room for you. Gee, absolutely. And you know, the reality is, you know, all of you have highlighted, you didn't necessarily go searching. You didn't go out and write in a book and say, listen, I'm going to step outside today and try to find this action, right? It's there. And so, you know, especially in our communities, you know, there's always things going on, right? When we talk about Blackness, or even like Trayvone, as you said, starting to have that conversation around mental health, there are so many pieces to the Black experience that we don't ever talk about, that we don't hear about or celebrate. And it's with people like you, right? Using your platforms, having these conversations, like just being real, that it truly allows people to come together, right? Seeing, okay, well, listen, like, you know, I never met this person, but they're interested in what I'm interested in. You know, they look like me, sound like me, move like me, you know, and you know, Kate, even as you said, like realizing the Black Panther Party, that power is out there. It looks like us, and it also moves in numbers, right? And that brings a whole different mindset. The other side, all of you've already spoken to it, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. Navigating in this space, in these spaces as a professional, as someone who's Black, you know, the intersection of like politics in our communities or with us as individuals. You know, Trayvone, you highlighted how it individually can impact us, right? One, a prime minister never coming into the Black communities, but then also two, people not addressing us individually, right? Street checks or these other conversations that are had about some group of people, but that group of people is not heard, right? So if you're brought into the room, you're not necessarily given space. And so in this part, I really want to dig in. As a person of African descent, what is your mindset as you move and navigate in these spaces? And the second part of that, what is the importance of self-care in navigating these spaces, or being able to navigate for a long time so you don't burn out? Whoever wants to jump in, I'll highlight you. But that is the question for the face. Kate, give me 1 second. I think we got you highlighted. All right.
Okay, so I always find, and this is like, again, everyone's personal journey, but when I realized that professionalism was a made up concept by white people to keep us in line and keep us to behave, right, according to their standards, I was like, you can't tell me anything. You can't tell me anything. You can't tell me that because you got a button up on and I got joggers on that you know more than me. That doesn't even make any sense. That's got nothing to do with how my brain works. So I don't care about being professional, right? That's not what I care about. I care about how I make other people feel. I care about uplifting people's voices. Again, I care about standing in my truth. I care about these things. I care about challenging things that don't make no sense. So that's my mindset. My mindset is, okay, how true can I be? And also, I'm always looking for the things that don't make any sense and looking for the language that can be clarified. What do you mean by that? You say that this space is inclusive. What do you mean by that? You say that you understand anti-Black racism. What do you mean by that? Right? These languages that people use that we go, okay, and it kind of subdues our mind, like, yes, anti-Black racism. No. What does that mean? How have you challenged that? How have you broken that down and created something new with Blackness at the epicenter, with African Nova Scotia, understanding that when I say Black, I can mean African Nova Scotian, but African Nova Scotian is also its own individual identity and also many, many different identities, right? We're not a monolith or homogenous. So I think I just try to be critical with love and with purpose, critical with community in mind in these spaces. And self-care, man. Okay, like, so it's important, preserving yourself so that you can pour back out to communities important. But I will say I've burnt out a few times. So I know what self-care isn't, right? I deeply know what self-care isn't. I know how hard you have to pull yourself back when you've been burnt out. So that's not worth it. That's what I will say. But I guess self-care in spaces for me oftentimes, and has a lot of times, look like getting up from a table. See ya. If I wouldn't let my children or future generations sit here and listen to this, I'm not going to do it either, because I'm setting the precedent that people need to bask in this, and no one does. So self-care, I think, means like recognizing your boundaries in a space when it doesn't feel right for you, when it's not serving you anymore. I write a lot. I do yoga. I really appreciate going to the water. Trey, I can see you smiling. I love swimming. So going to the water is good for me. But also sometimes it's like, man, I also just like to unwind and like listen to some music and like have a drink and chill with my friends and laugh. Like, joy is also self-care. And almost every time after like a big action, I would go to like an African Nova Scotian elder's house, and I would dance and I would sing and I would eat and I would drink and I would just be, I don't have to talk about the politics right now. I'm just going to be with my people. So yeah, self-care in truth for me has been really hard to navigate, very hard for me to navigate. But I'm learning and I'm open. So that's all I can say.
Oh, and it is well received and appreciated. I think before I pass it though, could you give us some reasons why? Why could self-care, or why is it challenging, right? Like for me, even example, I didn't even, self-care was not a part of my life until I left sports. Being an athlete, it was always, how quickly can I get back? How can I dive into it? I feel like a big part of our culture as well is like when stuff's going on, we throw ourselves into the work. And that hustle sometimes works against us, So I just want to hear your thoughts on some of those challenges.
Yeah, I think like there's a piece of us that feels good when helping community, like communities where we're at. That's what fills us up. So it's hard to be like, I don't have any more space or capacity. There's so much to do. There's so much to fix. There's so much to heal that for me, it was hard to turn things down. I don't think, again, like society was built off of free Black labor. So this idea of like rest and taking care within a Black body, we're never going to get the permission to do that. So we have to be really aggressive about when we create that space for ourselves. But yeah, I was just having a hard time saying no. Like this past year, there was so much murder at the hands of police that you're operating from this reactive crisis mode, survival mode. Like, how do I get ahead of this? And you just put your head to the ground and you go. And that is not a sustainable pace, right? Because then when you finally look up, you're like, who am I? Like, where was I? Where, like, what's going on? You know, what time of day is it? What season are we in? You know, you have no concept of where you've gone. And then you also have to unpack all the feelings you didn't feel while you were just going. So I think that that's why it was hard for me. You know, so I think my advice to anybody or young folks would be, you know, be easy. There's time. You know, we've been in this fight for 400 years. There's time, you know, we got some time. If you don't get it done by Friday, we have time. So I think that that's what my advice would be, you know, like slow down, zoom out, take it to your people, read a little bit, marinate on it, pull it apart. Yeah, take it easy.
Greatly appreciated. Knew you could give it the full justice. Thank you. So, Trayvone, let me just spotlight you, and I'll let you in.
I'm gonna jump right into the self-care, because there was times, well, me and Kate, we've been through the same exact kind of stuff. There was times where I had to be the big brother for Kate, and self-care is very, very serious. Something that is really, really needed. One of the questions I asked a minister before, they welcome newcomers. And so they're very open to newcomers, and then they want to have everything planned and right for the newcomers. So one thing I said is, how can you have the right path for them, but we don't even have the right path for ourselves here in Canada? We don't even have a straight line for ourselves. And so it's crazy, because I was on the phone with someone today, and we said the exact same thing. How can you try and create the right path for someone else when you don't even have the right path for yourself? So that question always stuck with me, and I took myself down that road. I took the left when I should have went right, because I didn't know how to say no. When I first got into this politics and stuff like that, I'm someone, I wear my heart on my sleeve. My mother, my father, they say they're grateful that I'm like that, but they say there's to a point where I go too far with it. And they tell me that to this day. So when I first got into this, community was always like, there was people reaching out to me, asking me if I could do this favor. And I never looked for nothing in return. So I was always saying, yeah, I'll help you. Even though I still had school, I still had basketball, I still had sisters, brothers and family to focus on, but I was just giving my heart out. I was like handing it over to the people. So it just kept building up. And then it led to mental health. That's one of the biggest things in the Black communities that we do not talk about enough. It's one of those things that it's hidden, especially for Black men, because Black men, where I come from, well, we all have connections of where we come from: North Preston, East Preston, Uniac Square, etc. You're taught to be tough, be strong. You can't cry, you can't shed no tears, you can't show no weakness, because if you do that, you're not cool enough to hang with the big boys. If you do that, you're not cool enough to be able to do certain things. And so that's how I grew up. I always grew up seeing those kind of things. Like, I had older brothers telling me, no, you can't cry. If you cry, you can't hang with us. And so I held that all the way up until I lost my little cousin, Tristan Reese. He was taken from me, and I was trying so hard not to cry. I was holding in all my pain. I was told multiple times to go talk to someone. I didn't do it. I was just trying to play tough, play it cool. And I forgot all about the self-care because I was still trying to take on the community leadership role. I was still trying to be that activist everyone calls me. Still trying to do school. I was traveling. I went to Africa trying to learn more things in Africa, but I forgot all about myself. And then later on down the road, I ended up having a seizure. That doesn't happen in my family. It never happened. I was the first one. And so that right there was the eye opener for me. I had a seizure, and it scares me to this day because, well, it continues to scare me because we just lost someone in the Black community a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago due to a seizure while sleeping. I had a seizure while sleeping before, so I don't know how it feels while sleeping, but I'm someone that experienced a seizure before while in bed. And so my mental health isn't fully there. I'm not the best at self-care. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to progress with it till this day and trying to climb up that ladder to better myself. I made an announcement to a few people today of things I'm looking to do for my self-care. And there's times where I'm gonna have to back up and step down from some of those roles that I'm playing because self-care is a main priority. Everyone needs to remember that is what keeps them going. If you don't care about yourself, how are you gonna care about everyone else? Because what if you're not here, then what's gonna happen? So I've been thinking lately, and it's just like I gotta start putting myself as a main priority because I need myself. If I want to make a difference, if I want to help the next generation, or if I want to help my community now, I need to be here. I can't be 6 feet under and trying to make a difference. I'd be a bright light bulb under the ground, just down there wasting energy. I want to be, before I leave, I want to waste I want to give all my energy to everyone else before I ever go anywheres. And so self-care is a serious thing that everyone needs to focus on, especially in the Black community. People told me to go talk to someone, but one of the things I say, I can't go talk to someone that can't relate with me. They'll tell me to go see a therapist. I go see a therapist. 99.9% of the time, that person's white. And the first thing that I'm going to talk about is racism, because that's something I experienced a lot throughout my life. And all they're going to look at me and say, I'm sorry you had to experience that. I'm sorry you had to go through that. They have no other answers for that because those are the ones that created the problem. Those are the ones that have it going to this day. They can't, they don't know what to do because they don't experience that. They haven't been through what we've been through. We're the ones who are facing all of these problems in life. We're facing a problem that we didn't create. They come to us every single time. What are some things you guys are going to do to solve this? Kate seen me flip on a reporter before. I took that question and I bounced it back to him. I was like, no, what are you going to do? You guys are the ones that created it. We didn't create this. So what are you going to do? Didn't have an answer. They all give the same answer as, oh, I would change the way of people's hearts. Man, no, I don't want to hear that. As you guys, Bobby, you prefer that as he was garbage. I don't want to hear that garbage. I want to hear something to climb. And so, like I said, self-care is highly recommended for everyone. Please don't hold nothing in. Let it go. Like, even if you can't talk to someone, go to church. I always thought going to church, I had to be 100% fully committed. I'm an athlete, so growing up, I was always taken on weekends. I couldn't go to church on Sundays. But when I went through that process of losing someone in my peer, someone in my age category, that's when I was like, I need someone at this moment. When I went to church, I didn't go see that preacher and say, yo, talk about these things at church this Sunday. When I went, everything that was on my mind was talked about. And that's how I figured out that's how God talks to us. Because I can't have a conversation with God like I'm having with you guys right now. But God will find his way to talk to me. God will put the right path in front of me. And so that's what I felt like I had thousands of slaps across the face, but those slaps were slaps of motivation, something to turn it around and keep me pushing forward. So self-care is very serious. I please, everyone, like me, talk to me if you need anything. Talk to one of us. Please don't hold in your pain or your anger, your fear, anything. Please talk to someone, because it will sneak up on you. That's not a myth. That's not false information. Your anger and everything you hold, your emotions you hold, it's like the demon just chasing you down. And that's what will put you down later on down the line. So please talk as much as you can to your best friend, your brother, your sister, your mother, and take advantage of those little things, because when you don't get that chance no more, you're gonna be stuck and have 1,000 words to say, but you can't release them no more because you're not here with us. So please talk.
Very powerful message. I appreciate all of the insights in a big way, being able to truly hold space for yourself, but also what that looks like in terms of the people around you, right? Like that's really changing the narrative, holding space, having these conversations, like honoring yourself. And as you said, sometimes you have to leave, right? Sometimes you have to say no or take a step back. And it's never easy, so I greatly appreciate you bringing that insight. Miss Nicole, if I could pass it on over to you to build.
Self-care for me. Wow. So I've had to reconfigure my life personally, because I too am a giver, and I too wear my heart on my sleeve, and I go way above and beyond to make sure that people have the resources they need. I will always manage to care for myself to make sure I have what I need. But when I see people who don't have, I will go above and beyond to get that, or find a way to get it to them. And that's how I want to approach the politics. How do we, deal with that? But I've come to know the danger of going above and beyond, especially if it's not asked, but you just go ahead and do it. Because, again, the Bible talks when there's a need, you see that you can fulfill it, you go ahead and you help that person. But what I find for myself is that my brain don't shut off. I'm always thinking, I'm always creating, I'm always pondering, and I'm always observing. And I'm always trying to understand, one, when things are changing in my life, but understanding other people so that I can connect with them. And I think that's why it's so important, is to make that connection and understand, or be abreast on what's current, what's new. That's the fashion in me, staying on top of that. But also now for politics, staying abreast to what's going on. So my brain is always gone. I now have to tell myself it's okay to go to sleep, rest, right? Sleeping and resting is two different things, but you can sleep and rest. So I'm getting good at that. The other thing is I recently was in a motor vehicle accident. And as of last year, sorry, not recently. But since that accident, two things have happened. I could have lost my life and be done. And so from that moment on, I just wanted to make the best of every moment, every opportunity, leave a mark, impact the community, my life, some way, somehow. And that's my steps going forward. But what's happening, again, with self-care is that I now have migraines. I've never dealt with migraines in my life, but they're debilitating. They will make you feel disoriented. So I now have people on speed dial I can call if I feel one coming on. I let them know what's going on with me, because I don't want them to misunderstand me if I'm in a mood, because it doesn't put you in a positive mood. But I've learned to manage that, and I've learned to be better at it and rest, stay hydrated, do a pampering a day or something to help me mellow out. I don't really care for medications, but I will help if that's what's needed, because I don't want to then start getting side effects from things that you just don't want to keep progressing into something more. But I've learned to do my quiet time, tap away from people, from all the noise, right? So that I'm in my right headspace and right spirit space. Because when you go out to work, you're going to come and give your 110%. And you want to be replenished. You want to be healthy. You want to be in the right frame of mind. You want to give your very, very best. So I've come to understand me, the person, what Nicole needs. And if I'm in, when you do introductions and you talk about that, like when you do icebreakers, what are your needs? What are your concerns? What do you bring? And this is me. And so I've learned to really pay attention to me, and be observant of other people, but pay attention to me because I matter too. And my health is equally as important as anybody else's. And then again, we monitor that behavior, we monitor those same qualities, and all the other people who are seeing like, okay, she deals with that, I can deal with that. I have a sister who deals with diabetes. So I don't sit and eat a bunch of stuff in front of her. I do things that I know that help her say, okay, I can eat healthy. I can turn this situation around because I don't want to lose her. And I don't want to lose anybody else who's struggling. So I don't put myself in positions nor cause other people to be in a position where they're in bad position of health. Everybody around you should be thriving and healthy. And whether that's just supporting them or reminding them, or reminding yourself, take a break. You go off, do that. I'll deal with the kids. I'll help you out, whatever kind of thing. And that's the other thing for self-care. I go and do fun things. I just go and just let my hair down and skiing, horseback riding, whatever it is to stay active and healthy. And the family loves that. That's what we do. We roll like that. So I look forward to those things because that also helps us to keep things in the right perspective. So that's my self-care.
No, thank you kindly, right? Being able to balance it all out, especially when the mind is always going, right? Hitting and finding moments of pause.
Yeah.
Right? It's not ever easy. No, and I greatly appreciate that because that's the reality, especially as Kate and Trayvone talked about wanting to dive in, being givers, as you highlighted, right? And especially when it's about community work, it's so difficult to say no or let me get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially go ahead.
One of the other things too, and this is my self-care, and my family knows this, and anybody who knows me knows this. I take snacks and treats with me. I keep stuff in the car. Why? Because I'm always hungry. I have a high metabolism. I know that. But that also helps me, one, if I'm going somewhere for a meeting and there's traffic, as opposed to have road rage, I nibble. I snack on things to keep my mind active and not so impatient. So I know these things, little trick things for me, because that's what helps me, again, be in that right headspace. So I've learned to pay attention to me. If I need that, I need that. And so that's what I do. Those are the things that you have to do. You have to make the time for that, because if not, you're not going to be pleasant to deal with. You're going to be, not as focused. So all of that stuff mentally does play in. And if you need someone to talk to, have your people, have those particular core people that you can say, who will, one, you could be, completely open and honest with, and they won't betray your trust. They will keep you in perfect peace, and they will be able to speak into your life with the right manner of speaking and keep you focused on, you know what I mean? And let you be you. You want to come undone and have a snotty nose and do all that, you can do that in front of them. And then get yourself back together and get back out there and do the work that's required.
Especially that highlighting the reality of, I guess, to use that language, right? Having a safe space, and everyone needs them, right? And it might not be physical, but the reality is that, especially for us as African, people of African descent, a lot of spaces are not safe. A lot of spaces are intentionally, in the obvious, but also on the low-key side, toxic, right? Actively against us. And tying it to Trayvone, your point, right? Having conversations with people, and you say that, these spaces are toxic, and they literally question, well, why would you have a space for just Black women? Why would you have a space for just Black men to talk about this? Isn't it the same for everybody, right? And so these forms of gaslighting also make it so important to be able to have, whether it's community, but a circle where you can, as you each highlighted, just let yourself be you. and celebrating yourself, you know. And before I get too much more excited and try to start asking questions, you know, Mr. Taylor, I got to pass it on over to you.
I guess for me, it really started, I won't say recently, but fairly recently. And it started with a quote. And I couldn't even tell you who made the quote, but it just resonated with me. And the quote was, "I forgive you, not because you've asked for forgiveness, and not because you've acknowledged the pain that you've caused, but because my soul needs peace." And for me, that kind of says it all. It's like, you know, you're gonna be in African Nova Scotia and you're gonna get slighted all the time. You're gonna have to deal with foolishness all the time. It's not gonna stop. For me, I work for the federal government and I'm the only Black person there. You know, for me, being who I am, you know, I'm one of those types, I'm okay till I'm not. You know, and when I'm not, whoever gets it, gets it. So for me, you know, you have to find that safe space. For me, that's my house. You know, I have a wife and two beautiful children. I spend as much time with them as I can because they're my motivation. They're my reason for doing things. Any idea I have, I bounce off my wife first. Like, there's nothing that happens in my life that doesn't involve them. And that's my reason for being here. So that's my focus. You know, you enjoy what you do, but especially for me, like doing community stuff, everything is important and you have to care about everything that everybody's upset about. And if you're not, then it's a problem. So you have to find a way to fight the fights, but also find the people who can help you fight, because you can't do it all yourself. You know, I tried for 2 years and, you know, I was trying to be at every meeting, be on every call. And eventually I just squashed it. I was like, you know what, I'm not doing any of this. You know, you fucking just send me the minutes. I don't have time. You know, like I'm trying to do things, and the things, you have to really prioritize what you're trying to do and make sure that the things you want to do are getting you to where you need to go. You know, like we talk so much, and I said the beauty of this, like I look at young people, and before I forget, Trayvone and Kate, that apology that Trudeau gave, I was at that apology and I put my letter in his hand. So it's kind of crazy that we're on a call now talking, meeting for the first time. You know, that interaction between you and him basically gave me a chance to put us on the map again. You know, so it's crazy how even though we don't know each other, even though we've never spoken to each other, our goals are so already intertwined. We're on the same path. We're just starting from different places. You know, for me, especially, and I'll take it back to, you know, political power. That's one thing we've never done here, you know, and we don't have the ability because the system doesn't allow us to vote together. You know, so we'll never have a Black voice because we'll never be united. So we have to fight for that. That means a new system. But so what? This one doesn't work. It's broken. You know, everybody else has every right that everybody else has, except for us. We're the only people who don't have land rights. We're the only people who aren't recognized. You know, I work for the federal government, Parks Canada. And they were like, well, what can we do? It's like, tell the story. If nothing else, just tell the truth. The Maroons helped build Citadel Hill. I don't see that nowhere up here. You sent us to Halifax to die, or over to Dartmouth to die. I don't see that written anywhere. Like, tell the story, not just the story that makes you look good, because you know, the people you're telling the story to know the truth. So tell it. And yeah, it hurts, but it's not my problem. It's not my truth. You know, I tell people all the time, I don't come from slavery. Slavery is just something that was done to me. It's not who I am. I came from Africa before you named it Africa. I'm not, you know, I don't start from slavery. I don't come from slavery. Slavery is not something you can come from. You know, so when we're in, you know, we're talking to each other, we're empowering each other. We, you know, especially for the youth, like, you know, I'm so proud to see what you guys do. You know, I'm not that much older than you, but I'm older than you. And to see you with the strength, to see you with the charisma and everything else that you need to be heard. it's an amazing thing to see from people so young, and for people who are doing it in a system that's set up so that this exact thing doesn't happen. That's a remarkable thing. So for me, and my drive is, imagine how great we would be if we were in a system that allowed us to be great. So we need a new system because this one doesn't allow for our greatness to shine. And that's what it's, for me, that's the unifying thing for me, is we are so great as a culture. We built Halifax, literally built Halifax. Our communities were here before Canada was a country. We have so much to be proud about, but yet we keep it secret from each other. That's the thing. It's my job to tell you guys what you need to know. It's my job to tell you the mistakes that I made so that you don't make them. So that when you're standing on my shoulders, everything that was in my way is gone. And you can start from wherever you're going to start from. You can do whatever you need to do. It should be off of my back because I'm standing on my parents' back. I'm standing on my grandparents' back. That's the way it works. Rather than starting from the basement, we got to start building up that tower. And, like I said, kudos to you guys, because you guys are doing it, and you're doing it in a way that, like I said, the system doesn't allow. You're bucking the trend, you're fighting the system, and you're doing it at such a young age. It's a big thing. I'm in my late 30s, and yeah, I'm doing it, but if I would have started when I was your age, who knows where I would be? Who knows where you would be? So kudos to you for, putting your big boy pants on and getting it in, because that's what it takes. That's literally what it takes. You have to be no fear. You can't be afraid. You have to say your truth, and you have to own your truth. And if you can do that, you're way ahead of the game. And as you can see, it gets you to where you want to go. You just have to be willing to, again, say no. You have to be willing to say, that's stupid, I'm not doing it. Don't bring that to me no more. You have to be able, and when you're looking in these people's face, because believe it or not, it's a big thing to sit in a room across from a politician and say what you want to say. Because there is an authority quality that goes with, you're talking to the government, and as Black people, we know what they can do to you if they really want to. So there's always a little fear of consequence when you say what you want to say. But to stand up and say what you have to say and do it unapologetically takes guts. And I commend anybody who can do that. And I say, I do it all the time, but I know I have support. And that's the biggest thing with your mental health. You got to know that no matter what happens, somebody got your back. Somebody got it. Because God got my back every day of the week. He moved mountains for me. But when I come home and I have a conversation with my wife, that's what grounds me. That's what brings me back to reality. When my little girl looks me in my face and says, Dad, Dad, Dad. That makes me realize I'm a father. I'm a husband. And that's more important than anything, because those are God-given. So you have to take care of you, because that's all you have. You can't do anything without yourself. You can't do anything without your support, whatever it is. But as long as it leads you to do positive things, who cares? My biggest thing is sitting home and doing nothing. I'll pour a glass of rum, I'll sit down and watch TV with the wife. I'm happy. But that's what I need to be me. I need to be able to shut everything down, turn my phone off, and chill. And if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't be in the right headspace to go talk to the politicians. I wouldn't be in the right headspace to deal with the community. I wouldn't be in the right headspace to actually physically do the work. So you have to, it's a balance that's, it's hard to attain, but you have to realize none of us are superheroes. None of us are going to fix it in one day. Like you said, Kate, we're in a 400-year mess. We're not going to get out of it overnight. But if we stand up and we start fighting, well, maybe we get there a little sooner. But again, it takes mental health and it takes a strong mind to get there. But once you get there, it's a beautiful place. So I say that's what you have to strive for. You have to strive for that balance of work and life, and make sure your work and your life don't get together, because then you can't have peace. You have to be able to shut things off and just do you.
Dang, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if everyone caught all of those gems. Gee, but in hitting pause for everyone really to take that in, right? It's action packed. All of you have highlighted, and Charles, as you just mentioned, like, you have to be able to shut things down. And it doesn't matter what the context or the situation is, whether it's for self-care, whether it's for your headspace, whether it's just because the vibes in this space are not authentic to you, right? And the reality is that in using your power, in celebrating yourself, in asking questions, right, in being disruptive, not only are there challenges, but there's risk. And there's risk because, just like with Blackness, there's a whole lot of different outcomes. There's a whole lot of different things that could happen when you speak your truth, or when you speak truth to power, right? Or to others and challenge them on their bullshit. Because the reality is that, and especially as we get into this next phase on thriving and mobilizing, like, everybody has a duty of care. Like, it's not, 10 years ago, like, no, only the government can solve your problems, and they're your problems, not our problems. Or I don't know what you mean. And organizations could just not say anything publicly, and people could just keep moving on because I don't have to deal with it. But as you're all saying, right, like, this is now the time, right? Every day or every week, you got to take time for you and for the people that are around you, and, like, actually celebrate that. Because something I'm super grateful for, in terms of crossing paths with each one of you, is that you continue to bring your light, you continue to bring your voice. And even though there's, the ups and downs, and the road is never short, but you all find ways to continue to thrive, right? And I rock with what you're saying, Kate, especially around, like, the burnout, right? If you never fully push yourself, though, you don't ever know your boundaries, and you can never fully understand or appreciate your value. And so it is kind of a fine line to be able to say, like, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep going. All right, now I'm going to stop, and I'll see y'all in a little bit. And so as we look at that, each one of you continues to set a standard and an example for what individuals can do in terms of taking action every day. But also you have all spoken to and continue to highlight the importance of unity and of community and collaboration. And so as we look at being in these spaces, when we look at thriving as an individual or as a community, when we look at mobilizing, right, moving the ball forward, I want to dive into two questions. What is the role of individuals and communities in taking action? And so the question, how can individuals and communities mobilize to address social issues?
So
go ahead and dive on in.
yeah, I'll try to be quick. I would say, when it comes to like what a community member can do, especially if we're dealing with social issues, so politically, we'll say, write a letter to your council. I mean, it sounds mundane. It sounds, like, oh, well, what's that going to do? If every Black person wrote a letter to their counselor that represents them with a simple question, what have you done specifically for me? And if you haven't done anything for me, you can no longer represent me. I promise you, they would take notice. Stand up. He said, own your truth. If you own your truth and you say what you have to say, they will listen to you because it's true. Can't deny it. And if they do deny it, then you gotta, then you have a real issue. But that goes to someplace else. But you can't get to that other place until you actually take that first step. Now, like for me, where it's the ratepayers. If everybody in East Preston sent a letter to David Hensby and Keith Caldwell and all these other people and said, we don't like this, and nothing happened, well, then I have all kinds to say to that. And I can go right to council and say, you know, they're terrible representatives, and that's what we can do. And that's all Black people across Nova Scotia, because none of us have anything, really. And for even the ones of us that do, we don't have what we're supposed to have. So, you know, it's what is your truth? What is your fight? And what are you willing? Like, how far are you willing to go? Like, I'll stand in the street. Like, I don't have a problem with it. I'll block the street off and I'll scream with a bullhorn. Like, I have no problem with that. But I'm not standing there by myself because I'll get run over. So, you know, like, so that's basically what it is. As a community, if I'm standing out in the street, everybody needs to be out there with me. And if you can't be out there with me, park your car on the sidewalk and sit. Get on the back of a pickup truck, however you got to get there. But you need to be there because the only reason I'm out there is for you. So that, you know, we all have people in our communities who are supposed to represent us. But if we want to be represented, one, we have to be counted. But then that doesn't mean, like, I'm not talking about, you know, filling out census and like all of that stuff that we hate doing. But what I'm talking about is when your community is ready to move, your name needs to be there. That's the first thing you can do, is just show up. Because so many times you have community things, but the whole community's not there. You know, you have the people who support, but then the other people who are just like, oh yeah, well, it's cool, but you know, it ain't my thing. But sometimes you just have to stand up, and that's what it's going to take. Everybody, like I, you know, was saying earlier, and we've all said, it's that one common thing that we have to find, that we can all unite. And why can't that be the systemic racism? Why can't we all just say, you know what, we're fighting this once and for all. We're all going to get together, we're all going to fight it, and we're going to change it. At least try. And that's the other thing, don't be afraid to fail. Maybe it might not work, but then you try something else next time. But anyway, that's enough.
Oh my goodness, with the mic drop to pass it. Who might want to jump on in next? Kate, let me spotlight you. Give me 1 sec. You're golden.
Yes. That was great, because also, yeah, you can call and you can flood phone lines, and like that's a real way to show politicians that you're paying attention. They get away with the most because they don't think that we're paying attention, because they think that we don't understand. So when you take that little bit of power, and you know what, it's been the dialogue for forever, you know, taking to the streets don't do nothing, and that's always been the way. But as a matter of fact, Trey and I took the streets over and over and over again, and stuff did happen. Lots of things happened, and thousands of people came out. So how are you going to tell me that nothing happens, right? I don't think that that's true. That's what they want to tell you. That's the pacifying lie that they feed you. So bother your politicians. It isn't illegal to be annoying. I say that all the time. You can annoy everyone. It's not illegal. How can communities and individuals mobilize? Find your people. Talk to your people. Have conversations with people. See where they're at. Because I think for me, a big part of it was taking this like activist shit outside of typical activist spaces and having these conversations with people on the ones and being like, what do you think? And the truth is, we all have feelings about it, right? Like you ask any Black person, African Nova Scotian person, they have feelings about policing. They can tell you a story about policing. And when you bring to them, okay, well, actually, what's on the table right now is that it's illegal for the police to be bothering you in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 instances that they have. That's illegal. They're like, what do you mean? Yeah, you can't do that. And on top of that, they also have a file on your whole existence of you just going to the corner store, tying your shoelace on Clayton Street, you know, at 8 o'clock at night, she was on her back deck. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, like they have that information on us, you know? And when you start bringing those pieces into regular conversation, average conversation that we're having anyways, you really start to find out not who else is interested, because it's most people, really, right? Most Black people care about Black stuff. And you figure out where they would fit in the revolution, right? Because it's not for everybody to be in the streets. It isn't. I'm down. I love that. Let's go. But some people want to cook the meal for when you get back. Some people arrange the transportation. Some people go pick up the supplies. Some people watch the kids. Some people record all of the interviews of the politicians online. You know, some people send money, and that's what they do, right? And so when you have these conversations outside of the stereotypical context or academic settings, you get to really see, okay, everybody in our community is a part of this, has to be a part of this, and this is where they might fit because this is what they're good at. And that for me really inspires me to continue to mobilize and to think about how we can do it and bring everybody with us. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Hey, I appreciate it. Mobilizing with intention. Trayvone, give me 1 second. Got you.
So back to Charles and Kate, you gotta want it. And based on community mobilizing, yeah, we may not all have the same kind of plan or same thoughts running through our heads, but trust me, we all want to see that one change. And that one change in the Black communities, we all want to end racism. We want to get rid of racism, because I know for a fact, as a black African Nova Scotian, if I go to Toronto and I see a Black person, the first thing I can connect with them about is racism. It's sad. It's funny and it's sad that that's the way we connect, is because of racism. But we all want to get rid of racism. So we all got to have each other's backs. We all got to be ready to stand with one another. And that's the way the world is right now. If like you go around asking someone what's their main subject, it's always me. So there's times where it's like you got to put it behind you and put it we. Turn that me into we. Because we ain't gonna go that far when it's just me. Yeah, like we were just talking about self-care, when there's times you have to back up. But as long as you know you can back up, and the rest of the we is still moving forward, and you can still be attached to that we. So we got to continue to grow with one another. We got to continue to talk to one another, because talking, it will bring us up, it will bring us together, and it will bring us keep us moving forward. You got to be ready to take on those challenges. You got to speak the truth. You can't try and cover things up. You got to be ready to speak the truth. When I spoke the truth, me and Kate spoke the truth about Parliament Hill, and Dorico with us as well, it brought a lot of more things that we probably weren't even expecting to the table. And after that, it just continued to grow. We were pouring water on that flower pot, and we just kept going forward. And then other community members started seeing it. We all experience the same things in the community. It's just the fact that some of us never like to admit to it, or some of us feel like we're too cool, or we're just all on different. We have different ways of dealing. Like there are ways we all deal with things differently, personally, but trust me, we all dealt with the same thing, and we can make a change. We can make an end to that. We can make sure that there's a positive way. We can turn that negative experience into a positive experience. We got to have one another's back, because if we don't, we're not going to get forward. We're going to still sit under those barriers where they want us sitting. I don't want to be under this barrier forever. That's why I'm looking to build the platform for everyone. I'm looking to do as much as I can for everyone, because we all need one another.
Echoing that in the biggest way, we do need each other, and we need people like all four of you, right? Leading, showing, right? Constantly speaking and using your voice and power. Ms. Johnson, if I could pass it on over your way.
Well, I think great minds do think alike, and you guys are saying a lot of the things that are just running through my head. So what I'll add to what everybody's saying is that for me, mobilizing is one, again, tapping into our elderly committee groups. We can't forget about our elders, even though sometimes some elderly think may be stuck in certain thinking processes, but we can't forget about them because they came first. So mobilizing them, however, we need to mobilize them for where they are. They can't move as fast and they can't do a lot of things that we used to, but we can find something to kind of give them a level of commitment to be a part of what we're doing. Religious groups, there's power in there. You know what I mean? They gather all the time, so we can utilize that as a gathering place. Whatever it is, figure it out. youth groups. We need them for sure because they have the energy, the tenacity, they have the fresh ideas, they have it all. So tapping into those, utilizing them, giving them a level of commitment realistically, because they're so far advanced in their thinking and technology, like you can tap into them a whole lot. And then those who are being adversely affected by, what's happening. So how do we mobilize everybody, but giving them a level of commitment where they can meet? Some people may be able to commit, standing on the corner and rallying for an hour. That's fine. Like Kate said, everybody can contribute something from where they are, but we don't negate that. We don't dismiss them. We just include them. Somebody can cook and cater, fine. That's great. Love that. And acknowledge each and every one of whoever's participating, because that's the thing. When somebody don't get a thank you, that's disheartening. But if you acknowledge them and thank them even for an ounce of what they did, that's uplifting. And then they want to participate in that. And that's part of the thing with me when I was doing the campaign, is it's acknowledging. Someone will say, oh, I can do this, but I can't do that, and feel bad about it. No, by all means, come here, please. We can pick you up, whatever you need to do, but come so we can walk this thing and do this thing together. I can come where you are and meet with you. Bobby assisted in 2 meetings that was held in East Preston. And, I said to Bobby, whatever we need to do, let's just do that. Whoever shows up. Would I disheartened that some people didn't show up? Probably, because I want this for the community. I want to hear what people are saying. I want to listen. Part of my work experience, and I think everything that we go through in life, work experience, life experiences, build who we are and get us ready for the avenue in which we're going to go. I did home care, and that's the compassionate that I can have for people and the seniors, and be patient and delicate and gentle. I did foster care, giving kids a fighting chance to be themselves. A kid don't have to be adult, don't have to worry about feeding themselves. Opening my home to that. Because why? Because that's a part of our community. Our communities, like, the Colored Home for Children. I went to school with people who grew up without their parents, and see some of them succeed and some of them, have a real hard time struggling. But if things were in place for them, resources or other things were in place for them, they could have thrived. They could have had a better, but they get caught up in the system, become a ward of the province, and then shuffle through the system. Like, that's not fair to them. They come from somewhere. They belong to somebody. So, part of positioning myself politically is to know who I'm aligning myself with and who I'm fighting for, because all of those people are not just a race. They have the equal opportunity to have everything that's owed to them, because they've put their blood, sweat, and tears in the ground to produce good. So I just want to be a part of that going forward, and align myself up with people who can get that job done. And it is not about who's qualified, who's professional. I can put on a hat and have a pretty face, but at the same time, it is the heart that's behind it. So, we can dress it up and make it pretty, but speak our truth to the power. That's the message. That's the thread. That's a part of our DNA. And people want to silence us through that, or keep us down, or make us feel that, speaking up, or empowering kids who want to be a bully to keep being a bully. No. That bully's being a bully for a reason. We're going to stop that, because it's hurting their life later on, and they're hurting themselves socially to connect with their own peers. So, helping people get past, the pain, where they're stuck, the system, so they can have a place in their community and invest in that, whatever that looks like for them.
Can I just say something really quick, Andreas?
Please.
Okay, Nicole, you just hit a huge point on the head. Like, systemically removing Black children from their families and communities is a way to try and break our communities up. And those kids feel and have a hard time coming back. And I know, because I was adopted into a white family, and it took me a really long and hard time to figure out how to get back. And I was really lucky that our community functions the way it does. And they put their arms on and said, welcome home, right? And the second I say I'm adopted, people go, oh, okay, and bring you in. But again, I still had some tools, right? I didn't come from foster care which is a totally different system. We're even further removed with no tools on how and who your culture is and how to get back. You know, foster homes are often removed. So I think that coming and collecting those people and being like, you count as our numbers, you know,
Yeah.
like we need you too.
Mhm.
And accepting that one of our very intentional Black experiences here is having those children removed. That's on purpose.
Mhm.
That's with intention. That's to break our strength up. So yeah, I think that's a huge piece. So thank you for bringing that forward, because that one hits home.
Mhm. Yeah, it's I mean, there's so there's levels. There's like an onions of levels and layers upon, you know, all the stuff that we have been buried under. But yet we still survive. Yet we still have roots. Yet we still still persevere and want to get up and still fight the fight again the next day. You know, like there's no beat down, right? The only thing you're doing is adding to the power and the strength that we already have on the inside and to draw from. And then when we get into circles like these and share each other's stories and share, you know, the wealth of information and knowledge that we have, not only in that, how many of you sitting right now feeling like you're like, you know, big man on top of the world right now because we're hearing and sharing our stories? Like, it's encouraging. It's saying, okay, you know what? Today might be a little bit, you know, like a laid back day, but for this reason, to kind of build you up and to say, okay, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to set out to do this. This is reminding me to do this. You know what I mean? I'm going to connect in a different way, but keep moving in the channel that I'm flowing in. So we need each other, and that unified body coming together. Yes, COVID's messed us up in terms of how we gather, but again, that all has its place and reason to, you know, for health reasons and to stay safe. But that's what we do. We gather, we chill, we hang, we break bread together, you know, and that's the other thing, you know, having a meal in front of us and talking and being safe and being comfort, you know, that someone cares enough for you to make sure that you're fed, that your mental health is okay. How y'all doing today? Did you guys make up the other day? Did you guys work out that solution? Tapping into our people, because some of us don't always know how to handle, you know, difficult times or what to do with misplaced anger and frustration. Talk that out. And my family is good for that. I thank God for my family because we can sit at the table, break bread, have a conversation. Uncomfortable conversations, serious conversations, or easygoing. But everybody knows their place and everybody functions accordingly. And I'm not saying that to say that we know our place and we don't, you know, step aside of that. But we know how grandmother, who is the pillar, who's still here today, you know, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, cousins, right down to the little ones. They know they have a place in the family, and we function and teach them how to go out there, be foot soldiers, or be whoever they are, but be authentically them. And so other little children, other families who may not function like that, need to hear that message too. Somebody needs to come, you know, alongside of them and show them those demonstrations. And we have a plethora of those guys, you guys all right here, you know? So I just say go forth and do what your purpose have to do, is speak your power, speak your truth to power, excuse me, and don't apologize for it. Just keep going. Thank you.
Goodness, no, we're definitely going to continue the conversation, mindful of time and everything else, as well as the constraints. So I want to transition into the, because we'll definitely follow up and everything like that, but into the audience Q&A. And I know we had a couple early questions come through my way, so I want to make sure that everyone is able to use the chats. So for our audience, go ahead and click the chat bubble, and then to make it available to everyone, click panelists and attendees. But if you just want to submit your question to the panelists, go ahead and click panelists, and we'll do our best to kind of reread it. But I will ask the first question. The first question that I got sent in was, you know, if you had a message to an earlier version of you, to a younger self, what would that message be? And I would love to hear. I guess it's directed to all of you. So whoever wants to jump in first.
A message to my earlier self. I was blessed to have three beautiful elderly grandmothers and great grandmother when I was, coming up. Um, I think they probably told me everything I needed to hear, coming up. Um, one was no mistakes. I played basketball and I had a jersey with my name on it. My grandmother told me, that's my name too. Don't mess it up. She didn't say mess, but that's the only time I ever heard her swear. So, it's and my great grandmother, she used to call me her little playboy. And I used to laugh. I was like, yeah, that didn't mean anything to me. I was a kid. But I would tell my younger self, stay true to yourself. That's the only thing you have. Like, self-image is very important. And for me, I have nothing to do with social media. Nothing. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't have time for it because I don't need to know what everybody's doing all the time. And if it's important enough, I'll find out. So for me, I don't make time for everybody else's stuff. And that would be my message is focus on what's important and stay true to that. But as long as it's true for you, that's the biggest thing. And it takes a long time for all of us to realize, but you find something that you're passionate in and you throw everything into it. But as a kid, you don't know what you like, so you put everything into everything. Like you're all over the place and you're trying to do everything. But it's about recognizing what you're good at, what you're not good at, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. If you're a soft, meek, and mild person, you probably shouldn't be a public speaker. You should probably find something else to do. So being honest with yourself and being true to yourself. And above all else, you need to find Jesus. You need to be on that path. And that's the main thing. It's, like for me, the only reason I do this is because I pray about it and I feel okay about it. If I prayed about it and I had any bad feelings, I wouldn't do it. So, and again, that's about being honest with yourself. If there's something you really, really, really want to do, but you got that, pit in your stomach that's telling you don't do it, you have to be a little bit older before you realize you probably should pay attention to that and not do it. But it will never steer you wrong. Whenever you're doing anything, if you get that rock in the pit of your stomach, deep down, you got no business doing whatever it is you're doing. But when you do something good and you're doing something right, you don't have that feeling. So that would be my goal, is search for that feeling. Search for that weightless feeling. If you feel weightless when you're doing it, that means it's easy and that means it's right. If you're doing something wrong, you're always looking over your shoulder. You're feeling bad about this. You're feeling guilty. And that travels into your everyday life. And when you're around real people, they see that. Because real people know. So that's what I would tell my real self is just be a real person. Be honest with yourself and listen to your gut. It'll never steer you wrong because that's what I do now. And I'm pretty okay. That's what I would tell myself. And that's what I would tell everybody is listen to your gut, as simple as it sounds. If you pay attention, anything you've ever done wrong in your life, you felt it in the pit of your stomach before you did it. So be honest and true. And if you can do that, you'll be all right.
Golden. And before I pass it over to Kate, I just want to give a big shout out. Trayvone has to finish up. He has to finish up what he's doing, so he has to sign off. So just wanted to make sure I give a big thank you so much to Trayvone for joining us. Give you the 1-2 if you want to sign out, boss man.
Hey, thank you guys. Glad I got to meet everyone on here, except Kate. I deal with you every day. But nah, I appreciate this. This means a lot to me. I got to close up at work. Work has let me take the last 2 hours off to do this, to give my voice to everyone else. So work definitely understands what I'm doing, and they understand what my passion and my heart is for. So thank you guys.
Greatly appreciate you. Kate, if I could pass it on over.
Yeah. I would have told my younger self that your Black is blessed, don't stress it. So I was like always so concerned, like, oh my gosh, again, not growing up with like strong community reflected back to me. I was like, am I being Black the wrong way? you know? And how do I do this? Like, who's gonna tell me? You know? And no one tells you, right? But I think something that I also probably would have told my younger self is that your ancestors are gonna be proud. You're doing it, you're saying the things, you're learning, you're pushing back. That's all you can do, right? Is fight for the things that they died for. So I would have mentioned that to my younger self. And I also probably would have said, listen, when I was younger, I ran from the church, okay? I was like, this ain't for me. I can't do this stuff, right? I can't do all this stuff. It's not for me. It's too much stuff. So I just couldn't, yeah, I didn't get it. It just didn't fit. I couldn't put it on. I couldn't sit in it. I just simply was lost when it came to that. So I rejected it entirely. Was like, whatever, a lot of rules. And I think, yeah, I would have told my younger self, don't be so afraid, don't be so afraid. And like I didn't even really listen to gospel music till like 2 years ago, maybe like a year and a half, because I was like, I'm scared. What was I scared of? You know what I mean? The first time I listened to a gospel song, I lost my mind. I cried for hours. I was not the same. I'll never be the same, right? Because it was like these words that were hundreds of years old that people have carried with them, kept alive forever. So you know what I mean? Like spirituality is as individual as people anyways. So you're going to wear it how you need to wear it. You're going to live it how fits best to you. And I think oftentimes, you'll hear me talk about the stars and the moon and stuff, but I don't talk a lot about God, but that is God. I am God. We're all God. It is what it is, right? God, we were all made in God's image. So even when you feel like you're really doing wrong, where are you? Wrong by who? Right? And Charles talked about that pit in your stomach, and I was like, oh, I know that feeling when you feel the rock drop and you're like, I ain't supposed to be here. Right? And as long as you don't feel that way about yourself, then you're doing right by you. Right? Then you're doing right by you. So I would have said, don't be so afraid. You know what I mean? Lean in. There's a lot to say about the fact that church has lived for so long here. That that it's been a pillar for us, and that's for reasons. So yeah.
Hey, listen to your gut and lean in. I felt that. Miss Johnson, if I could pass it over to you, because I know there was a question that came into the panelists, so I want to make sure that I touch on this, especially because I know y'all gonna get fired up.
Well, there's a few things that I would say to younger me, because I like to talk. Be true to your own convictions, Nicole. Be true to your own conviction. Then again, that's not taking on everybody else's stuff, but be true to your own conviction. Trust your spirit. Stir up your spirit, man, whatever that excites you. And I mean things that causes you to grow, causes you to be enlightened and empowered. That's what I mean by stir it up. Not doing anything that makes you step outside of who you are as a person, and that it's okay to be you. It truly is. I like hanging with me. I do. And so it's okay to be you. It's okay to do you. It's okay to be you. And I don't care what anybody shapes that for you. Your parents were always going to have your best interest at heart, your spouse, whoever it is. But you are uniquely you. In your dot life, you are you, all of you. You have your teeth for your reason. You have your personality, your laughter. All of that is you. And for whoever comes in contact with you, they're going to be impacted by you if you're authentically you. And it's okay to be you, because you'll touch them in a way that only you can do. I remember, and I'm okay if I can share this. I remember when I was coming into all of this knowledge of God loving me and feeling the pressure from other people, because people were pulling on you to do things and all that stuff. And I had in Walmart a moment was like, You know, like I feel like I don't know who I should be. Some people say I'm too perky. Some people say, you know, this is too much. And I'm thinking, God, who? And then you know what he said? I created you. I fashioned, designed you, and purposed you, and knew you beforehand. And he broke it down. And I'm going to tell you right now, that was a whole lift off of me. So I'm okay to be me. I'm okay to be me. And I'm going to say this to Kate and everybody else who may have had that frame of mind. You're already doing what people would say coming to God. You know why? Because you're in a relationship. Your relationship with people. You know how to talk to people. You know how to relate to them. I'm going to tell you, loving God is never will ever be traditional. Never will it ever be religion. It's relationship. That's what it's all about. It's relationship. Because you know why? Because he desired family, he desired order, and he desired rightness for us to walk in that. And that's why it's so powerful when Black people or people who have this mindset that they can walk without fear of anything because it's already there. So you don't stress about it. Just be you.
Okay, Andreas, just one thing. Nicole made me think of it. But when you're talking about walking without fear,
right,
like being in the streets, that's the scariest place you could be. You're surrounded by cop cars. We watch people die like that.
That's right.
I'm never afraid.
That's
I ain't
right.
stressed.
No.
I'm never afraid. I didn't even think about it. You asked me what I said to the people I don't know.
Right.
I'm not sure what just happened. I can't remember because it's big. It's beyond me. Like I have to be outside of my body to be moving in that way. I have to have the utmost faith in this moment in time. I am more protected than I have ever been, you know, and that there's nothing that can touch me. And it's walking without fear, truly 150%.
It's a mind. It truly is a mindset. And I think that's why a lot of people can excel at certain things that are challenging for other people. It's a mindset, and not everybody can know how to function and operate in that. But for those who don't, we can cover them with that. But I'm saying when we speak to ourselves, it's okay. Confidence. You never cast away your confidence. Be sure of one thing, but never cast away your confidence in anything that we do. That's right. I'll stand on that.
Oh, that's a big one. Never casting it away. I mean, it's, you know, all of the things that we've been talking about this evening, right? It comes down to betting on yourself. And if you don't take the time to do that, if you don't take the time to honor yourself or value yourself or set boundaries and conditions, nobody else will, especially if you're a Black person, or if you're a person of African descent. Everyone has expectations and rules and their idea of how and what you should do and why, right? And so that's, you know, what I really appreciated of all of your messages, but of all the moves you all continue to make. It's in line and aligned with yourself. You're being authentic. And then, you know, what I love, before I get to this next question, I didn't forget. But what I love is that, you know, as you're doing that, right, it comes in, you're in flow, right? So you're not really worried about anything. You're not in fear. You're not in, what am I going to say next? You know, whether it's athletes or musicians, everybody experiences being in flow differently. The same way when you're speaking and you're just comfortable in being in your own shoes, being there in that moment and letting your truth speak, you know? And so I greatly appreciate all of what you've all said. Before I jump into this next question, Nicole, you about to say something yet?
You reminded me of something along that I want to share because I think it's important when we're talking about the fear. So even though, you know, this was my first run as a candidate for the 2020 municipal election, my confidence was totally, you know, the community knows who I am, or they know my family or whatever. There's some level of connect. The concern I had was connecting with the other parts of District 2, and that was in the white communities. But that fear dissipated because you know what? I was me. I went in there, introduced myself, connected with those individuals. They connected with me back, like joyfully and unexpectedly, but accepted me and wanted to get to know me more, wanted to understand, wanted to invite me back. And that just only built my confidence. And now the key thing is building upon that, staying relevant, staying connected, staying engaged. I don't think what I was experiencing was fear. It was just the uncertainty and the unknown of what to expect. But, now that when you have an understanding of something, you can walk a different way. You don't have to tread lightly. You can walk a different way and engage that way. So again, there's that side of fear, but not the fear that it will prevent you and stop you from
balancing that fear and that risk, the uncertainty and unknown. It's powerful because that's where the magic happens, right? When you take some of those risks, when you get out of your comfort zone, when you go against traditions, that's where a lot of the richness can come. And speaking of going against traditions, the question that was asked, and I was waiting for it all night, as it was repeated, so just for everyone else, a lot of what we talked about was working together and that we need to do that in terms of mobilizing. So the question that was asked to all of the panelists, and I'm mindful of time, so I'm like, this is a big question. But in a condensed form, how would you mobilize the community so that we can all speak with one voice? And I don't know where we start. But Bobby, I'm gonna throw, yeah, absolutely. Good to go.
All right. Well, it's like we were saying before, like we have to find that one thing that we can all agree, like, and not just that, but understanding that change is possible. You know, that's the biggest thing for us is we're so apprehensive to start because we've never really gotten the change we've ever asked for. That's a big thing. And because for me, trying to do what I'm doing, I hear from a lot of people, oh, we tried to do that 20 years ago and it didn't work. Oh, we tried to do that 15 years ago, it didn't work. We've been talking about that for decades and we ain't getting nothing. But that's not a reason to not do it. That's a reason to fight harder. It's a reason to try something else. So for me, and this is just my idea because I think about it all the time, but everywhere across Nova Scotia, Black people face the same lifestyle. They face the same restraints. They face the same racism. They face the same system. So why can't we use that as the galvanizer? We all have that same complaint. The system isn't for us. So if we could all stand up and say, we need a new system, because that's something we've never done. We've never all stood up at the same time and said the same thing. It's never happened. But if it did, something would happen. So whether it's what we want, who knows? But that's a risk you have to take. Because this is not going to work. I have to explain to my son at 7 years old what racism is. Because it's all over TV, it's all over social media. I have to explain to my 7-year-old son that people hate him for no other reason than the fact that he's brown. The fact that his skin is brown, so people hate him. I have to explain to him that there are people in the world like that. It doesn't make sense to him because it's nonsensical. It's stupid to hate somebody because they're brown. But that's the life we live in. And everybody across Nova Scotia lives that life. So if we could stand up for that one cause, that one thing, we would go a long way. A long way. Because I've talked to a lot of people in a lot of Black communities, and all the stories is the same. They stole our land. We got paid buckets of salt fish and bags of potatoes. We got bags of groceries. We got kicked out of here. We got sent here to die. It's all the same. But we have to put aside that selfishness or that community pride that we all have. It's good to have, but not at the expense of your brothers and sisters. What happened to Africville should have never happened because Preston and Hammond's Plains and Beachville and Lucasville and all of those communities should have fought right with them. What happened in Beachville shouldn't have happened because Preston and everybody else should have been there, helping them, fighting with them, as opposed to sitting back saying, okay, we just can't let that happen to us. Because if it happens to them, it happens to you. Because those are your people. Like, that's what we have to realize. We're all family. If you're African Nova Scotian, we're people. Yeah, we come from different places. Yeah, we got here at different times, but we all come from the same place. So that's the thing we have to understand is it's different because it's in a different place. It's in Yarmouth, or it's in Halifax, or it's in Digby, or it's in Whitney Pier, or it's in Amherst. But it's the same system. It's the same racism. It's the same fight. We just have to, for once, try to fight it together.
That's the mic drop, huh? Oh my goodness. Luckily, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on over to Ms. Macdonald.
Okay, I'm ready for this one. So that piece that you said about if it happens to them, it happens to you. So you told your 7-year-old that people don't like them because of their skin color. I had to sit down with my 10-year-old and say your proximity to whiteness doesn't make you any less Black, right? So it don't matter if you the only Black person in the room go, you're still the only Black person in the room, right? But so that feels really important to me as a lesson, right? As an affirmation that you understand, right? But I also think mobilizing in community for a lot for me has to do with trust. Trust that out East Preston people are saying what they need to say. Trust that there are people in North Preston that are saying what they need to say. And if you're not the one, instead of going, oh, well, why wasn't it me? Going, what actually from this person's message aligns with mine? Where are we aligned? Instead of going, I wouldn't have said it like that, or, oh, she don't know what she's talking about, or, you know what, that was terrible. Like, okay, but what did they say that does stay with you, that would have been the same, that you didn't have to say? And then find those pieces and trust that we can speak, trust that we know what we're doing, you know? And that comes like trusting elders. They've seen a lot. They got stuff to share with us. Trust the little babies. They know what kind of world they want beyond beyond our limitations, right? Beyond what we don't think is possible because we're adults. We lost that, right? They still have that wonder. They still have that perfect world that they can speak into existence. So like, yeah, just trust that, you know, the right people are there at the right time to say the exact perfect things to get something new moving. Yeah.
Jeez, everything tonight is exactly an example of what you just said, right? A combination of the right things, because, you know, you can never be certain of what comes next, you know? And so that's where the power of hitting pause, of being in the space where you can actually take in what's around you and find a balance of like not just getting caught up in everything. Ms. Johnson, if I could pass it on over to you.
Again, I'm just going to add to what was been said because Bobby and Kate both said some very profound things there. I think, you know, there's a lot of things. There's a hundred things on the laundry list of things that need to get done to put things right in order for equal balance for the Black community. However, I think that starting off with one item on that list is a simplified way of getting some things done, because you don't want to overwhelm the agenda and do too much at one time for it to become back like a complete no. But if you can push one issue at a time, I feel, then you're still making strides. You still have time to strategize about other things and do it effectively, so that, you know, again, we go back to that balance, that people who want to be a part of it, they're not overwhelmed by it, but they can see themselves in how they can participate or be involved. Then again, I definitely agree with the trust aspect. We have been built up so much to be all about the divide and not the unification. And, you know, if you can taint a little bit here and taint a little bit here and cause people to mistrust each other, not understand, or, you know, not agree, then they've won. And that's not helpful to us. It's never has, and it nor will be. So coming together, we can do that greatly. We come together for weddings and funerals, but we can still come together to be unified and push at least one item agenda forward. And then use that as a measure to do the next thing and the next item and the next item. And if that means adding this community and adding that community, start somewhere, but we need to do it together. And that's just the bottom line. We need to be unified. Come in the same room at least one time so we can say that we did it at least.
Listen, I'm looking at the time. I don't want this to stop, but no, listen, I'm very excited, and I know we're gonna follow up with the questions, and we're definitely gonna follow up with the conversations. But I just want to really just hit pause to say I greatly appreciate, Trayvone, of course, but all three of you that are still here, and joining us and sharing your magic and sharing your truth, right, and being vulnerable and sharing your story, because again, like, seeing is believing. And not only are we able to see and hear each of you on your journeys, but able to get a little bit more behind the story. It's empowering, right? And it honestly gives everybody else permission to do the same. So I'm super excited, especially because I know we'll be cutting up some of this and bringing it into the schools and with the students who, were very curious about this part of the conversation and how it would turn out. But I also want to say a big thank you to all of our attendees for tuning in both across the different platforms. We will have more of the conversations. We will be following up. But before we get going, I would just like to turn it back over to each of the panelists for a little 1-2 sign off. Ms. Johnson, if we could start with you. Final thoughts and a
Well, thank you, Andreas, again for setting this up. It's this meeting and the meeting we had during the campaign was very inspiring for me. It allows me to connect with the young people. I would love to be able to connect with them in the schools. I thought that whole mock, when they did those mock elections, when the students were in there I thought that was awesome. And actually on the trail, I met a few students who shared their story in class about participating and how it was all set up. And I thought that was great. And you know what? That's a teaching component, so they can see how an election works, where they fit in with that, and why an election is needed, or why it's helps, shape the community and put people in power and, talk about leadership and everything else. I think that could be a play. That could be again, a teaching tool so that they can understand politics as an early age. So I just want to stand, in a place where I can do my part, be a part of what's happening for 2021 and the future. I want this to be a safe place for us. I want this to be a place of equal opportunity, and not just for jobs or education, but for basic life living principles for all of the times that people have worked and invested. So I want to be able to be a part of that, whatever that looks like. And I love learning. So this is going to be a learning, and I'm excited for that aspect too. So thank you.
Greatly appreciated. Mr. Taylor, if I could pass it on over to you, or Kate, you said you wanted to jump in first, maybe? All right, Kate, I'll pass it over to you, and then Bobby will.
I'll go give Bobby last. Yeah, so last words. I dropped it in the chat, but I actually am so grateful for, Trey knows I'm grateful for him. I tell him every day, but I'm so grateful for y'all on this opportunity to have been connected and share thoughts in this way. I need this so badly. I didn't even know. And I feel replenished, and I just have so much love for y'all, like so much love, unconditional love. I want y'all to succeed. Whatever I can come to, please tell me about. Whatever you need, please let me know. I will be there. And I guess to the young bucks that will see this in the schools, yeah, you can do this too, You can do it. Whatever it is, whatever you're thinking about, whatever you've been told you can't do, whatever you find hard, whatever you failed at already, you can do, right? Failures are your gifts. You saw where you missed the mark, and you can do it. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on over.
Again, appreciate the conversation. I hope that we can do some stuff. Like, I mean, we're all talking about, unity and stuff. Well, I want to do that. It's I don't know, like I find myself like even now, like I have all these ideas. I just want to, drop on you, see what you think. In terms of the youth, I would say whatever you're willing to do is good enough. Whatever effort you can give, whatever, and that's not just youth, but anybody, whatever you can do to help the cause is good enough. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's something. Even if it's calling somebody on the phone, telling them to go to a meeting that you can't go to. Like whatever it is, but just care enough to do something. That's what it comes down to. It's about loving each other and taking care of each other like a community is supposed to. I mean, growing up, I'm old enough to know, like walking down the street where everybody knows who I am. They know where I live. They know who my parents are. And if I mess up, they got permission to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm used to. Like, that's community, but that's how you learn. You understand that everybody's watching you. So when you get out in the world and everybody's watching you, you already know. It's about preparing our youth for what's to come. And more importantly, it's about making sure that that path is a lot smoother than the one we're riding now. Whatever it is, who cares what it is, as long as it's better, as long as it's easier, as long as we're fighting, because being complacent and accepting is giving up. And I can't do that. Like I love every Black person enough to at least listen to what you have to say. Now, after that, I can't say. But no, not everybody is built like this. Not everybody can sit down and have a conversation like this. Not everybody's built for that. Some people shouldn't be in the room. But we got to be honest enough with each other, but respectful enough of each other to accept it if you're one of those people. Because having the wrong people in the room is tantamount to going backwards. It's taken so long to get to this room, to get to this place, that when we get there, we have to make sure that we do it right. Whoever that person is, if it takes a year to find that person, so what? As a Black community, we'll find that person. Because everybody knows somebody who they think could do it. So put those people out there. If they want to do it, we'll figure it out. But that's what it comes down to. We have to do something. Because right now, what we're doing, we're fighting things as they come. We're dealing with people who plan 40 and 50 years in advance. So if we're fighting what they're throwing at us today, how are we supposed to contend with what's coming 10 years later? How do you deal with those things unless you know? And how do you know unless you talk to your elders? But more important, listen to them. Like I said, I talk to all groups of people and I hear all manner of things about every demographic. Everybody has something to say about everybody else. But the one thing nobody's doing is listening to everybody else. The biggest thing is racism. You talk to a young kid today who says, I got treated this way and it's the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. And you have an older person look at them and say, yeah, well, when I was a kid, they used to try to run us off the road with our cars. So what you feel is nothing. But what you have to understand is, for that kid, that's the worst thing they've ever experienced in their life. Just because it was worse for you doesn't mean it's less for them. They weren't alive when you were alive. They don't know what it's like to be lynched. They don't know what it's like to be beat up because you looked at a woman. They don't know what it's like to be harassed by the police because you were driving someplace. So whatever they experience is the worst thing they've ever experienced. And as Black people, we can't discredit that, because that's part of mental health too. Because as a younger person, you go to somebody who's an elder who you respect and you tell them how you feel and they tell you your feelings mean nothing. That means you're invisible. So We have to make sure that we see each other. You know, it's a real thing. You know, a black person sees a black person and they wave to each other and say, what's up? It's to let you know, I see you, in a world that doesn't. It's a real thing. So rather than just saying, what's up? Can I help you out today? What do you need? How are you doing? Because that's what we need. We need community. This has been a weird year. With all this COVID and everything else, we are a communal bunch. We need to be with each other. That keeps us together. That keeps us happy. That keeps us healthy. So if we can't do that, what are we going to do? There has to be something else. You know, when it comes to education, well, why don't we fight for our own schools? Like, there's so many things we can do if we get together. And that would be my main thing, is like, you can't, as East Preston, I can't do anything because it's just East Preston. You know, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the whatever stats they go by, we don't have, of course. But if I had East Preston, North Preston, Cherrybrook, and everybody else, then we have numbers, then we get things, and then things change. And that's what it's about. It's about change. And change means doing something different. So let's do that.
And with that, I just want to thank everybody so much, mindful of time. I know y'all stayed longer, especially to our panelists and attendees. We'll be continuing this conversation. This is only one of the steps we are taking forward, but best believe there are more. You know, but with that note, I really just want to highlight some of those core themes, making sure you take moments for yourself. Sometimes you got to take note, you know, but at the same, taking risks, going against the grain, speaking truth to power is never easy, but you always have to bet on yourself and really double down, because the right people, the right moments will always find you, you know, and you really have to lower your expectations, because you never know when you're gonna step in. What did Bobby say? Step into the big people pants. You know, you welcome to the party. You didn't know you were invited, you're here now. So, you know, I appreciate all of you bringing your voice and your stories, and I'm very excited to continuing this conversation. But enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay warm because it is frigid and cold. Bye for now.